Hey, what's up everybody? It's Nagamaki Jeremy with Nagamaki Shears. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the 3 most important things to know when buying a professional scissor or shear. Let's get into it. Now before we get into it, any of the scissors and shears you see here in these videos are available through our website at nagamakishears.com. Also make sure and give us a follow on Instagram at Nagamaki Shears, and make sure you sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter is based off of educational information, things you should know about scissors, steel, that types of thing. Also, it's the only way we offer discounts. So if there's ever a scissor you have your eye on, you're wanting to get it for a discount, the only way to get those discounts is to sign up for our newsletter. So the first question you should be asking yourself when buying a professional scissor or shear is, where is it made? And here we have a list for you, the top countries of where all of the Japanese scissors are made. And you can see here with Japan being at the top of the list and Pakistan being at the lowest. And the important things to understand about why having your scissor made in Japan is so important and what makes it the very best really dates back to the Japanese history, going back to the 15th century, which is actually pre-samurai, to the Japanese just being notorious for their metallurgy and making and designing just the best blades in the world. The Japanese culture has the longest history, also has the longest history with producing high quality, sharp objects, swords, steel, so much so that all of Asia in the 16th century were getting all of their weapons almost exclusively for Japan. So when you look at the Japanese history and what they've been able to accomplish with bladesmithing, it's a no-brainer that they just have the history for making the best possible blades. Moving forward from that, another really important thing to understand about why having your scissor made in Japan is so important is the modern day design hair cutting scissor. The things that we're all cutting hair with, if you look at the actual design, 95% of what people are using is a Japanese style scissor. This is a new accomplishment that didn't come out until after the 1960s, when everybody actually was using a German style scissor with a bevel blade. And so the Japanese came out with the convex or the clamshell design, the hollow grind, and the ride line. And these were huge leaps in technology. These were huge leaps in metallurgy. These were huge leaps in the mechanical workings of scissors that really changed the game. And now if you look at most scissors that hairstylists and barbers are using, they are all of a Japanese style. They all have ride lines, hollow grinds, and convex shapes. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all made in Japan. This is the Japanese style. Another very important reason why you would want your scissor made in Japan comes down to cost and skill. The cost will directly impact how much you pay for the scissor, but what you're really paying for is the cost of the people who invented this design, the cost of skilled technicians who have been doing this the longest, and the cost of a very nice facility in a place that takes no shortcuts and doesn't outsource for any of the materials. And so, to sum up why this is the most important thing that really matters when buying a scissor, the most important question to ask, the most important thing to look for made in Japan on the actual scissor, is because the Japanese scissors that are made in Japan have the richest history. They invented our current design, they have the most experience with this design, and their skill level and their facilities are the absolute best in the world. Henceforth, why that is the most important question to ask yourself when buying a scissor is, where is it made? And if it's made in Japan, it truly is the best. The next most important thing to be asking yourself when investing or buying a professional scissor or shear is, how is it made? Now there's 2 main ways that scissors are made: an assembly line process and a single smith process. One is more common than the other, but we'll get into kind of the breakdown of both and how they work. So the most common is the assembly line process, and this is where one person works at a station and they cut the blades, and then those blades make it to another station where somebody welds the blades on and so forth until the scissor is complete. That's the most common way. And there is nothing wrong with this way. It doesn't compare to the second way where a single smith makes it. And I'll give you some reasons why. The single smith process is where one single smith will make a batch of, say, 30 to 50 scissors. And he does everything from welding the steel together, to having the blades cut, to welding them on himself, to sharpening, buffing, polishing, the whole process. And this is very unique. It's much more rare these days to find that, but it gives you that direct connection to the bladesmith. It gives you that really bespoke experience with a scissor where you feel like you're connected to the bladesmith and you have like a true piece of art in your hand, as opposed to something that's a little more industrialized. The main difference here is that the single smith, as he's working from step to step to step, he sets himself up for success as he goes down the line. So he's not somebody who's not thinking about maybe a bad weld from welding the handle to the steel, because he knows he wants to do that as well as he can to save time when he has to grind that out. As opposed to what you end up with a more industrialized process, or the assembly line process, is maybe somebody who's doing these things very fast with a little less precision. Now, both ways are very good, but the main thing to realize here, regardless of how your scissors made, whether it's an assembly line or whether it's the single smith, these are all in the hierarchy of our very first question: where is it made? And the reason that's so important is if you're getting a factory style scissor made, it matters where that factory is. You're going to get a much better factory industrial process scissor from a country like Japan than you would, say, Pakistan or China. And there are reasons for that. And you really can't compare the process to one another. A factory in Japan is night and day different from a factory in China as far as quality and just overall craftsmanship. And so those are the really important things to understand, is how it's made, whether it's an assembly line process or a single smith process. So the third and final question you should be asking yourself when buying a professional scissor or shear is, what is it made from? Now, this is kind of a controversial topic because the #1 sales tactic in the United States is Japanese steel. We use Japanese steel. We use authentic Japanese steel. We use high carbon steel. We use the best, most authentic, greatest in the world Japanese steel. And the reason these companies are using this sales strategy is because most of these companies are having their scissors produced in China. And so they're really trying to bring attention to the steel that the scissors are made from, Japanese steel, to try and sell you a Japanese product at Japanese prices, even though this is a Japanese style scissor from possibly Japanese steel made in China. And so you can see the correlation there of why they do this. The main things to really understand is, again, we've got a hierarchy of questions here, and this is the third question you should ask yourself for a reason. This probably matters the least. And there's also a bit of myth busting here. And what that is that some of these companies will even say, well, this is certified authentic Japanese steel. And everything we know about testing steel and determining what something is made out of is only as good as the piece of paper that it's on. And what I mean by that is a certificate saying that a sample piece is Japanese steel, well, that's only good for the actual sample piece that was brought in. So when these companies say they have certified steel and they show you a certificate, that's really only as good as the sample piece that was actually tested. That doesn't necessarily translate to your scissor. The only real way to determine what kind of steel your scissor is made from is to have it tested yourself. And most of these companies are relying on the fact that you won't do that. And so again, they have a certificate that is insinuating that everything is Japanese steel, but there's only real one way to find out. If you're buying from a company and they're saying it's a Japanese steel, but they don't have the country of origin on it, you have to ask yourself, do you trust that company? If they're not even telling you where the scissor was made, you might not want to believe that it's actually made out of that steel. So again, the first red flag would be if there's no country of origin on it, I don't know how much you can believe that it's made from the steel that they're saying it's made from. That's a very important thing, and that's again why these questions are all in order. Where it's made, how it's made, what is it made from? And if the very first question isn't answered, there's no country of origin on it, I think that's your first red flag of whether you're willing to trust that the other two questions may be true. So I hope all of these questions do help you on your journey as far as making a decision. These are big investments that we make as hairstylists. These are tools that can last 30 years, 20 years, 10 years. You know, you can buy a very expensive scissor, you can buy a middle of the run scissor, you can buy a more affordable scissor. But knowing these 3 questions, what to look for, what to be asking, can really help you in the long run from being taken advantage of. And not only that, but having a tool that will last you a long period of time. We work very hard for our money as hairstylists, and you know, we understand that our tools need to take us to the finish line and get us there. And so knowing more about your tools and how they're made, where they're made, and what they're made from, very, very important. I hope this video helps. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing. That helps us out greatly. And we will see you all next month. Take care.